All right, class, let's settle in because this will be a lesson on how to spot AI art scammers. And this is a document that was put out alongside the document that called out a really, really notorious Russian artist named Chocopie, who was scamming in the Russian Telegram art community and then skedaddled their way over to English Twitter and continued their scamming over there. There is a 100-page document exposing them, and I've already made a video talking about their whole art scam shenanigans where they went under like multiple different fake accounts pretending to be different people. One of the accounts being their little sister, made all of these posts, was doxing and harassing other people. And then every time they were called out for using AI, they lied about it and played victim until that doc came out. But alongside that document came out a second document with more in-depth details on how to spot AI tracers and red flags. So I thought we should go over that together today. So let's dive in. And before we get started, please don't send hate to any parties involved. So this is the part 2, and it starts with AI tracer and red flags. And that this is a summary of details that are presented in document 1. The doc adds this is covering a lot of things. They're not covering everything due to some details that are more nuanced, being things that they want to discuss privately with artists, but that it could be misinterpreted by non-artists. The doc also adds, in order to avoid biases and due to the nature of art itself, you should always consult with multiple artists to gather different opinions and standpoints, and that this is not meant to attack or call out other people, but to educate clients on what to look for before commissioning accounts that might be tracing AI. And it adds, please do not directly quote the information below or link this part of the document as your source due to arguments online. The doc adds 1 account age. These accounts usually join Twitter during or after 2022. However, this is not a definitive sign. An artist could have made an account because their previous one was hacked. They could have only joined Twitter recently. Sometimes scammers will buy old hacked accounts and rebrand them, so the account age can be irrelevant. However, in both of these cases, the artist typically should have records of their accounts in previous platforms. It's very rare for somebody to have a high skill set to have never posted online before. Also, side note, these accounts typically have a blue check mark. So the second point, no old art or former socials. The account will post artworks that look skilled anatomy-wise, but will have no other social presence besides Twitter. And usually it's a Patreon or a basic card site. It's not necessarily strange, but it's odd when combined with the newer account age and lack of digital footprint. These kinds of tracer accounts will also avoid giving you their past username or share former artworks. Here are some examples of people that are basically waffling around giving, past information. This one is an account called Milk Himari. It was covered in the previous document, basically essentially exposed to also be a scammer. Somebody was like, hey, I want to see previous work. And they're like, unfortunately, I can't show them. And then they say, oh, did you go by any other usernames before? Sorry, I'm being nosy. And they're like, oh, haha, like this is the same account. It used to be permabanned and it was like a ghost account, basically. I post my art and it was like throwing things into a black hole. And then the commenter is like, okay, well, what about previous art besides what's in your gallery? And they're like, no, I only share things I'm really happy about. Example B, the artist is like, oh, I don't remember what it was like anymore. It's been a really long time since I last had a Twitter account, but I never had controversies. I deleted all my posts and the old account is gone. Another artist says, I've been using redacted username for a long time, but I used to go by this username. And then when asked, oh, can I see older works? They're like, I'm not comfortable sharing my old art. Example D, can I see more examples of your work live? And the artist is like, at the moment, I'm only ready to share these art pieces, the rest of my training sketches. Here are some more examples. Somebody was like, oh, can I have your previous artist usernames? And they're like, oh, this name or this name. I don't think you'll find much info. I've been on Russian platforms and Telegram if that's what you want. And then they're like, oh, I'm familiar with Telegram. Can I get some links? And they're like, oh, I had problems in life. I couldn't really give you info. They sent a couple links to group pages, but not like to a direct profile. So then they were asked for a direct profile link and they were like, oh, well, I don't really have one. And then the commenter is like, well, sorry for being persistent, but you mentioned going by this username and I can't find anything online about it. Can I have a link for your account with that username? And the artist is like, oh, I don't have any accounts or groups that are separate from those Telegram channels. So again, I just want to add another disclaimer that artists are completely entitled to show as much as they want. So like some artists choose not to show work in progresses or sketches they don't want to, and they're completely fine for that. But I will add, right, that with unfortunately the rise of generative AI and the rise of scammers coming around, a lot of clients would want to see some past previous work to hope that you're legitimate. Again, you are entitled to not show it, but just note that because there's a rise of these scammers that all have excuses of, no past work, whatever, whatever, it might just make people a little bit more suspicious about your accounts. You joined in 2022 or after, no previous aliases whatsoever. Your art automatically looks like an advanced artist. You have no examples of previous work, no previous usernames, no previous social media, no speed paints, no work in progresses, no sketches. Gonna look a little bit suspicious. Just being honest. Unfortunately, that's just how it is nowadays with generative AI becoming so popular. The doc also adds about Dambaru as a site for previous art. And it adds that Dambaru relies on manual uploads by contributors, meaning it's not always reliable, as a lot of art is never uploaded. This is especially true for artists on foreign sites like Weibo or Naver. Some artists prohibit their work from being uploaded to Dambaru as well. If a new account doesn't have any Dambaru uploads, it doesn't immediately mean they're tracing. And I also want to add another big disclaimer, okay? When it comes to like generative AI, is this artist tracing, whatever, don't just use like one of these elements and then just start slinging accusations like no tomorrow. Okay, look, man, there's many reasons why an artist didn't have a Twitter prior to 2022. Maybe they weren't 18 yet. Maybe they just never wanted to use Twitter. Maybe they were really popular on Weibo because they're a Chinese artist. And then they came over to Twitter because their friends were telling them to do it. But you, because you can't read Chinese, just can't find them on Weibo because you don't know how to type the characters. You know, many reasons why. And not every artist is going to behave the same, right? So just because one artist does this, one artist sketches like that, and you think it looks suspicious, that's just one thing. We really need to look at everything as a whole entire package to finally conclude, okay, is this like generative AI? So just saying that, okay. The second point, a sudden art skill improvement. The doc adds that this is one of the biggest red flags for tracers, and that they emphasize once again, and I find this document to be very like reasonable. The doc adds basically that they made it clear multiple times artists improve at different rates. There's no standardized way to measure improvement. It's something personal and different for every artist. Some artists can improve at an impressive speed within a single year. I mean, you guys saw like, what was it, PewDiePie, who did like the art challenge from like not knowing how to draw to being good at art. Like, people can improve really fast if they just put their mind to it. The doc adds, though, some more context. 1, this improvement leap happens within 1 year. Conveniently, almost always after 2023 when Gen AI progressed. 2, the improvement observed before the leap is consistent, as in they improved at a consistent rate prior, and then they had some ginormous jump in skill. And then it continues, after they begin tracing, improvement completely stops. They don't have a unique style developed over time, so their traces will look similar to other AI tracers. A lot of times they use the exact same poses and compositions without realizing it. There are few artworks in between their newer skill that show improvement progresses. So oftentimes you can pinpoint when they exactly started tracing. Here we have some examples. 3 examples of art pieces: December 2024, February 2025, March 2025, poof, May 2025, June 2025. Massive jump in skill. I will also add, when you see this massive jump, you don't see essences of the artist's previous art style or work or choices in their future works. Just looking at these 5 images as examples, right? We have the right 2 images as their jump, and then the left 3 as their previous. This artist clearly can draw and is good at art. And when we look at their other 3 pieces, you can see they have stylistic choices they like incorporating into their art. In these 3 pieces, we see they draw anime-esque characters very head-on. 2, they actually like drawing backgrounds. They add dark colors for the backgrounds and texture it in. 3, they have a unique way of drawing eyes, where they draw like 4 lines for lower lashes and kind of like 4 spikes for the upper lashes. You see that in this piece, you see that in this piece, you can see some aspect of it in this piece as well. They also have a pretty unique way of hair shading. Mainly notable in these 2 pieces, they draw that like big stripe for the shade, like for the shine of the hair. You see that element. You also see the skin color choices, right? For the color choice for the skin and the color choice they use for the shading. The colors blend together pretty well. Their shading is a little bit like ashier than you would see for the skin color choice that they chose for the character. And the brushes that are used are very like kind of like painterly brush. They do blend a fair amount throughout their art pieces that you can see. They also do have a mix of like hard and light shadows, and they use a fair amount of like blue in the shadows that you can see, and here blue for the highlights, right? These are all stylistic elements that the artist chose for their piece. And typically when an art, not always, right? Sometimes artists are like, I want to draw in a different style. But typically when an artist improves their artwork, you still see essences of their old art and the choices they make in their old art in their newer art pieces. But here, between March 2025 and May 2025, the jump is absolutely massive, and in the style of how they draw. Suddenly, the eyes are rendered completely different. They no longer draw eyelashes. The way they highlight is also really different. They do these like really white circular highlights on the skin that you will often find in like very anime-esque drawings. They don't do that prior to May 2025. Also, the posing is now completely different, really high up angles, very dynamic angles. It's no longer the very like front on angles that they've drawn prior to that. And then for the hair highlights, they no longer do the really big blocky white highlight in the hair. It's now the much more anime style blended out highlight for the hair. The skin tone color is also very different. Suddenly the skin tone is very, very cool tone for their characters. And then for the shading color, it goes from the ashier version, the darker ashier colors of the skin tone, to this very like pinkish reddish color, like a very, very warm color for the shading. So the color choice is different. The brushes used are now very, very different from the brush used prior. They no longer do backgrounds as well. Now they do pure white backgrounds. All of that combined, it does not look like it's drawn by the same person. Like typically an artist, even with a massive skill jump, you still see some essence of their older work in their newer stuff, and you don't see that here. The doc continues, this improvement in quotes only appears as advanced anatomy or dynamic poses, yet they will struggle with basic shapes in more complex areas of drawing, like frills, clothing folds, dynamic accessories, and long hair. In most instances I've seen, they cannot draw frills or ruffles at all. This is why these accounts stick to drawing girls wearing things like bikinis, bunny suits, gym clothes, etc. And here we have another account. We have some artwork here, 2022, 2023. These all look like they're drawn by the same artist. You can see a lot of similarities in the eye and the face shape. And then boom, 2024, suddenly it's completely different. Same with 2025. Here we have more examples. Example 1, 2023 to 2025, 2024 to 2025, 2024 to 2025, 2025 to 2026. This one is a massive jump. You can just see as you keep looking, right? These two even look like the same piece, but like vastly different. The doc adds, as a reminder, somebody improving at a fast pace or only drawing bikini girls doesn't mean somebody is tracing. In all the above examples, there are multiple other circumstances that have been taken into account besides sudden skill improvement. The doc adds, in a lot of these cases, it's new artists doing this. I can't force anybody to stop tracing AI, but if tracing is a way for them to further their interest in art and eventually learning on their own without relying on AI, then so be it. I want to encourage people to follow their art aspirations and be proud of their growth and efforts. Art is not a competition after all, and some artists begin their journey by tracing art they liked when they were younger and eventually went on to learn to draw properly and develop their style. My request is to please disclose if you are using AI so as not to deceive people who are supporting you. My other thing to add, and again, I don't like generative AI, I don't support generative AI, but if you are tracing images to learn, that's fine. Most artists actually started drawing like that, did art studies, art tracing to learn. Don't post it and claim it as if it was your original work, because it's not, it's traced work. Like when I was a kid, I traced Pokemon drawings to learn how to draw a tentacle, okay? I don't know why I drew so much tentacle, but I did. I'm not posting these tentacle drawings being like, yeah, this is my original tentacle work. It wasn't. I was freaking 13 tracing tentacle. The doc adds, advanced anatomy rendering, but with illogical perspective. When people who trace over AI with dynamic poses try to add extra details without understanding shape structures, they're often drawn without accounting for the perspective of the pose. Here we have this one. The bracelet is curved upwards, whereas from this angle, we're looking top down, it should be curved downwards. And this is the fixed version. Here we have these two side by sides with kind of like a panty line that's visible, whereas the panty line should follow this way because this is the angle of the hips. In this direction, it's riding up really high on the left hip. The doc continues. Sketch and anatomy construction are not on par with the final image. Beginner artists often struggle with longer strokes, line stability, and line weight. They do a really like feathery type of line drawing, kind of like with a lack of confidence, which is fine. Some people like the feathery strokes. It's part of their art style. Some people, they start, a lot of beginners will start doing that and then they'll go for the longer, more refined brush strokes as they get more confident in drawing. To each their own, man. The doc adds, when somebody is drawing anatomy and perspective at a certain skill level and in a certain style, their sketches should not look amateur in construction and line quality, as these are all skills that develop alongside each other. There is a discrepancy between the anatomy construction, where it appears very amateur, and the final image. And here we can see that, right? These two sketches here, they're a lot more sketchier. These could be like a lot more intermediate, and the finished image is like fully rendered pro style anime artwork. These don't match in quality, right? Because again, if you are able to draw at this level, this is what you're claiming to be able to draw at, you would also be able to sketch at such a level. And these sketches are not it. And also, I want to add another one of a lot of times the sketches also don't match the final product. Like here, this character is quite thin. This character's body is quite thin, and then they have a wider set hips. Here, the body proportion is completely off compared to what the final character looks like. Like the anatomy is off, the shoulder doesn't line up properly with like the back, but then it looks fine in the final product. So having glaring anatomy issues in the sketch that look more of like a beginner intermediate artist, and then having a fully professional looking final sketch is also odd. Here we have this. The doc continues, professionals don't resort to what resembles amateur construction guidelines during the sketching phase. While the tracer's finished pictures appear to have dynamic poses and colors you often associate with professional methodologies, the sketch construction lines don't show the same level of expertise. This is not measured in sketch quality, roughness, or anatomy skill, but line confidence. The way they draft their art shows their underlying skill. So here we have some more examples. The doc adds, some skilled artists may use loose guidelines that resemble joints, but it looks very different from the anatomy guidelines shown here. What stands out is the contrast between beginner anatomy fundamentals for the sketch construction and the final anatomy on the finished page. So here we have some more examples, right? These sketches, final product, some more side by side. Like a big one is just, why does this person draw this? Like, would a human draw this, and does this kind of make sense? Like, the little banana in the stomach, it's just interesting because what is that supposed to be? This is kind of like if you gave somebody the end product who doesn't know art and you're like, fake it art process, they might end up drawing this. Like, oh, maybe I'll draw like a banana in the stomach to show the waist. So next one, latex or skin rendering compared to other material rendering. Latex can be a very complex material to render. When it comes to people tracing AI, they often post images with latex rendering that displays a high skill level. But while it appears they've mastered coloring this material, in other artworks, the clothing materials don't have the same degree of complexity. There is always a disparity between their ability to render latex and drawing frills and clothing folds if the AI didn't render it properly. This one, by the way, I want to be on this point. This one is a huge one because all of these AI tracers, they render latex and shiny black clothing super well. Latex is hard to render. And typically, if an artist is good at drawing materials, clothing materials, fabrics, they're good at drawing different types of fabrics. But this latex bodysuit thing is not rendered anywhere near to the same skill level as the dress. Like the dress looks more intermediate, right? Maybe somebody who is learning to draw fabrics, but maybe isn't the most comfortable with drawing clothing just yet, but they're getting there. And the latex is like somebody who all they do is draw fucking fabric and clothing. This one is always a big one. If you notice all the AI tracers, they've always got the latex down on pat. Here we have another one. This example, right? For your character here. The skin rendering looks like it's colored by a professional. The clothing looks like it's done by a professional. Where's the arm? And then they add, and yet when the hair accessories are added on top and colored, they're not on par with the rest of the image quality or rendering. The shading method used for the OC hair that goes on top of the your character here base is visually distinct to the rest of the original image and doesn't match the color values. That one's a big one because the hair was probably drawn by the artist and the rest of it might have been a generated image that was doctored a little bit. Next up, same face as generic AI models. When tracing from an AI image that was generated with a generic AI model like Haruka or Tsubaki, the trace image will strongly resemble previous generations posted online, as some characters tend to have a very specific look with said AI models. That means you can overlay trace work in an AI image online and they'll be extremely close to match. Having a real artwork drawn from scratch match an AI image almost perfectly is extremely unlikely. The colors are always a very close match. So here we have, the generic model, the trace version, and then the overlay. Here we have a trace version, generic AI outputs. Again, just to add another disclaimer, AI steals from real artists. So there are obviously real artists who will draw faces that look like this, but because their art was fed into AI, the chicken and the egg, and their art was the one that came first. But again, when it comes to those artists, they don't meet any of the other points. Their sketches look high quality because they're able to draw at this level. This is their skill level. They have plenty of past works, work in progresses, a past history of doing artwork. All their skill levels match up, right? They're not drawing latex super well, and then when they have to draw different colored hair, all of a sudden it looks like somebody else drew it. They typically will also have previous other social media handles, different channels, etc. The doc adds, this also means that different people start tracing from the same AI outputs, and you'll end up with different art accounts essentially tracing the same face. Tracer B and Tracer C, and here are the same generic AI outputs. The doc adds, regularly you will not be able to distinguish between these artists art style-wise, as they're all tracing similar AI images and don't have a personal style of their own. All the characters they draw have the same Laura face, and the fact they overlap exactly means it's not simply just a reference. Next up, multiple face and style changes within a small time frame. Some artists work with a variety of styles and brushes and may draw different eye styles depending on the character. However, in these cases, it becomes a bit odd depending on the context and after the combination of multiple accounts, like a new account, no previous history, lack of independent style, various images having errors like missing fingers, poor line work comparing to the anatomy, etc. So example A. These are apparently all drawn by the same person. They do not look like it. I want to emphasize over and over again, as an artist, you are completely allowed to experiment with art styles, change your art style. But like most of the time, you can tell. You can tell over the progression of years when an artist decided they want to draw lower lashes, when an artist decided they want to draw 4 spikes for the upper lashes, when an artist decided the big blocky hair highlight is their favorite, they slowly start adding it in. And sometimes piece by piece, you might change your style a little bit. Maybe an artist wants to do a more like sketchier, looser piece one day. Typically, you can still tell it's made by the same person. It won't often look like this, where it literally looks like row by row, every single piece looks like it's drawn by somebody else. That's wild. And then here we have Misui and Asami. These guys were all proved to be tracing AI. The doc adds, keep in mind, artists develop their styles through years, incorporating elements that slowly develop over time. When you first start learning fundamentals, you won't immediately have a design style, but there'll be visible quirks that make the art recognizable as your own. Tracers usually lack that. Some real artists do work with what appears to be different styles, but they tend to have more experience in general. Natural changes occur over time and not drastically overnight. Next up, the huge one, missing limbs. And the doc adds, human error happens. A drawing with a small issue shouldn't set alarms right away. But this is, again, something added on top of red flags. Pieces by these accounts often exhibit errors beyond wonky or missing fingers. I really want to harp on this one as well, okay? Human error is a real thing. You will have legit artists accidentally forget an arm, accidentally forget a finger, whatever, right? That on its own, it's just one thing that's human error. It happens once in a blue moon, right? These accounts will have it happen like every other image, one arm is missing, one foot is missing, one hand is missing. Like, dude, how are you drawing at professional artist level and literally every other piece you're missing a finger, missing an arm? Alongside all of the other things, an account made after 2022, an account that rapidly shifts art style. The sketching looks really odd compared to the actual final output. See here, we have missing forearm, this arm is missing leg and feet. Yeah, where did the other leg go? Missing hands, right? Missing arm, the forearm is missing. And the doc adds, tracing errors across multiple images. Like above, these are not one-time occurrences that can be attributed to human error, but multiple instances of odd mistakes. Here we have, one 6-finger hand, another 6-finger hand, or 7-finger hand, actually. This one, dude, the gun is facing the wrong way. Like, the gun is pointing at her, and the muzzle, where the bullet is exiting, is facing the person holding the gun. How does that even happen? These ones, oh my god, the skin filling going up to the ears. Multiple pieces again, having these errors. The ribbon here, ribbon erroring. The crazy part is I'm looking at these and I can recognize who this was, which is crazy. Another one, characters not matching official references. This tends to happen when there is no lore for the character, especially if it's an OC. To the right are examples from original commissions done by Misui. We've already established Misui is tracing AI. Hair shapes are different, key elements are different. Here is the reference, Misui's work. The reference, Misui's work. Reference, Misui's work. The hair, the bangs, etc. It's all completely off. Again, when it happens one time, 2 times, human error, right? If you're drawing a character for the first time, this is your first time seeing the design, sometimes you might miss a piece here or there. You will find with these types of tracers, they will draw the same character over and over again and fuck it up differently every single time. Right? It's one thing if you draw a character and you falsely assume they have long pigtails when it's really short. You typically would carry that mistake throughout the pieces, because that's just how you think it looks like. What a lot of these AI tracers will have, they'll have one piece with long pigtails, one piece with one pigtail, one piece with the 2 short pigtails. They'll muck it up differently piece by piece. Here we have another example. They add, when a character has been released and there's no loras, the generation will not be accurate to the design. For example, Helen from the mobile game Girls Frontline 2 released in China September 2025. In English servers April 2026. Chocopai's AI overpaint was posted days after her release in English, missing critical features of the design. This is Chocopai's work. This is the design. The design looks completely off. The chest plate is completely off. The logo is not there. The line going across the chest also missing. It looks like there's a lot of side boob visible. That's not visible in this piece as well. Chocopai added buttons to the collar. That's not present in the original design. It's all off. Even if the character is old or popular and has tons of loras, AI will struggle to replicate complex accessories, like these Miko earrings. The AI generated ones are close, but not quite. Which again, you would, ask the question, would a human draw this? If a human looked at a reference image for Yae Miko, you would see there's, 3 circles for the earpiece, like the top of the earring. and that's just not there. Next up, lack of hair structure knowledge. Tracers will often appear to be skilled in anatomy but struggle with long hair. AI generated hair is often chaotic. They'll have no proper structure and it will create a drastic contrast with the anatomy. This one is the big one. It looks like grated cheese, it looks like melted Parmesan cheese, or it loops from one thing back into another again. Note that some artists willingly draw hair in a chaotic way that might resemble AI hair, especially if it's rough or messy to begin with or a doodle. But in the case of tracers, it's always the drastic difference when compared to the rest of the image composition, line weight, and rendering. So here we have hair drawn by a real artist. But if you see the hair done by the real artist, it's not doing the looping, melted Parmesan cheese thing. You can still understand like what the artist was trying to draw here. Here we have more examples of traced hair versus AI generated hair. But again, here are some real artists where it's literally part of the character design it loops back in, right? Next up, oh, my favorite, the lying and convenient excuses. They coincidentally have old iPads, low-end PCs. They can't record time lapses. Maybe their iPad storage is full. And again, there are genuine circumstances that some artists will have that causes these issues. But conveniently, these people also can't show old art. This was Asami, again, proven tracer that faked the speed paints. They don't know how to access old Photoshop drawings. They lost all their drawings after 2017. Another one, their phone doesn't have enough storage. Another one, the laptop keeps crashing. Another one, their device is pretty dated. They don't want to give time lapses because AI trains off the time lapses, but they can give a Photoshop file for only the flat rendering conveniently. Next up, Ibis Paint lost their drawing. Like, it's always conveniently the art pieces that are the most suspicious looking, that they don't have speed paints for, that the speed paint broke, that this, that, and the third doesn't work, that their device is crashing. Next up, they won't draw real time. They'll blame like lag, not being used to Magma, the drawing program that allows you to draw live with other people. So this person was not asked to draw anything that was particularly difficult for the kind of anatomy skill they exhibit on Twitter, yet they weren't able to replicate said skill. There was constant stalling every time a new drawing was started, or lying about how the layers were messed up or how they can't see the canvas. Next up, my other favorite, the time lapses looking real whack. The doc adds, to preface this, there is no such thing as a perfect time lapse. All artists have different workflows, but when it comes to tracers, sometimes there's something that doesn't click. And if somebody points out the issues, they immediately delete the time-lapse. Sadly, Procreate lets you set private layers to hide references from showing in the final time-lapse. So Procreate time-lapses are really unreliable. On Clip Studio Paint, it's possible to hide a reference layer. On top of that, Asami has now introduced chroma key tracing, which, again, I have a whole video about Asami. We gotta talk about that one because what she did was she had a green sketch beneath it and then used the chroma key feature in her video editing tool to remove the color green from the video, and then traced over that. Here we have some sus behavior of tracing. This one, you can see, they have layers too. Layers on their own isn't really reliable because you can trace and still have layers that are visible. This is the trace product, and this is the image that was traced. The doc adds, an artist not having time-lapses recorded prior is not strange. In earlier Clip Studio Paint versions, you had to manually enable the recording every time to make a new canvas. In the case of Psy, there's no feature built into the program. The recording started at a later point in the process, like skipping the sketch or line art, is not odd. Maybe the artist forgot to turn the speed paint on, or they purposely skipped it. Artwork files that have time-lapses are large in size, which is why some artists selectively don't record everything they draw. The doc adds, I don't think it's weird to not have time-lapses of every single image an artist have drawn. However, in the era of AI tracers, I strongly recommend recording everything you can just in case. I think that's the big one, right? There are legitimate tech issues. I used to draw on an iPad Air with 64 gigabytes of memory, okay? Yeah, Procreate can make the time-lapse, whatever. Exporting it, bro, my iPad had like no storage on there. It's hard, right? I get that. All of these other excuses are actual legit excuses, right? Genuinely, people can have these errors. But the big point that is I'm trying to emphasize over and over again is that like you wouldn't have all of these together unless something nefarious is going on. Like having an account after 2022, having sketches that look beginner, but a final product that looks professional. All of a sudden, you have a massive jump in skill quality and your new art looks legitimately nothing like any of your old art whatsoever. Conveniently, no speed paints, no past work, no prior accounts prior to 2022. You also lose fingers and limbs every other art piece. You're really good at drawing latex, but not good at drawing any other fabric ever. And your speed paint doesn't work. So here we have some sus time lapses. This is by Foam, aka Aqua, aka Misoe. Again, I already have a video about them. We've confirmed they are an AI tracer. They've kind of skedaddled off the internet. I think, well, I'm actually, maybe, I don't know if that's true. Look at their speed paints. The doc adds, while Misoe's time lapse seems normal at a glance, there is a single frame where a layer is copy pasted in the image with all of the flat color in a detailed silhouette. There are 11 seconds of sketching prior to this, so it would be impossible to use the filling tool fast enough to make it appear as a single second in the time lapse. Oh, wait, what the hell? This is my video. Yeah. Anyways, we know that. Next up, oh my god, we have Asami. Asami was the one that did the chroma keying. In the doc adds, Asami would delete the old time lapses after I pointed out they were traced from AI. Asami's speed paints and sketches, she knew exactly where every single face, eyeball, everything went. There was no sketch. It's straight into line art and then got caught because they were chroma keying. Next up, Yuekana9. I've also talked about this person. A lot of people were divided about these. The big one, people were like, yo, the anatomy doesn't look right compared to the level of skill you're supposed to have. Like the anatomy in the sketch looks off. I also have a video about this person. Corn, can I help you, son? His mother is trying to record a video. I don't know what he spotted out there, but he was like standing on my monitor arm. The doc adds, this might be considered a small nitpick, but it's also hard to analyze a time lapse that is 30 seconds long as it's sped up and condenses the workflow. Some tracers intentionally only show 30-second time lapses because it skips a lot of the process that might look weird when slowed down. In this example, the line art was traced on a separate canvas, then pasted into the canvas that was recording the time lapse. And then, Yuekana was found to be tracing AI because people found their old account where they admitted it. The doc adds, it's worth noting in some cases when a tracer posts a time lapse that appears to be odd and people point out things that look wrong, the tracer uses this as feedback. And their next time lapse will look vastly different as they will add what was missing. That's the big one too, because people will be like, wait, Asami's speed paints look weird because she has no sketch. She goes straight into the line art and her line art is immediately perfect. The next speed paint they post, they'll suddenly have a sketch in it. So like, no shade, no tea. If that's literally how you draw and you out the gate, boom with the line art, that's literally how you draw, why don't you stick with it, bro? Like, it's always weird that they suddenly change things up and they'll suddenly start doing things that they never do before and they won't do it again. Chocopie was the one where they had a whole bunch of speed paints and they did different techniques in literally every single speed paint. They had one where they would like sketch and then do the line art. They had one where they would grayscale. They had one where they would use a giant marker brush to block in the body and then line over that. All of these are completely valid and artists are allowed to swap techniques whenever they see fit. But along with every single other accusation of Chocopie, because Chocopie was hitting a lot of these red flags. So here are a whole bunch of different artists with their speed paints. The doc also adds that all of these artists kind of have like a more soft art style compared to like line art and cell shading. So it might not be the most fair comparison. But that when you look at it, every artist has their own speed paint and their own drawing style. And everything is completely valid to the artist. You're allowed to draw however you want. That is completely fine. But with like legit artists, you see they have some consistency with how they draw. Like every speed paint, if an artist likes drawing body first, head second, they'll do it every single art piece like this one, Or if they like to block in the body with a big brush first, you'll typically see that for every single piece. And again, an artist is completely allowed to do something and then change their mind and want to do it a different way later. So they'll have future speed paints where they do grayscale, for instance. But you would, again, typically see that like every single piece. And the doc adds, a time-lapse also needs context on the artist behind the account. The reason why I insist on not jumping to conclusions and why there's no correct looks to a time-lapse, because something that seems weird to somebody might be considered normal, unless it's like skipping frames. So here, this is a time-lapse that appears almost perfect with no sketch phase. I have been following this artist for almost 10 years, so I know the time-lapse is genuine, and I absolutely believe the skill level can be achieved. But if it was a brand new account that, let's say, also avoids mentioning past usernames, then it would raise some alarms. And I agree to that too. There are some artists that genuinely can just straight shoot into line art. That on its own is not sus. They hit like 10 of these red flags and that, then it's like, okay, that's a bit interesting. Now we have methods to forge video recordings. So here are some methods, digital methods and physical methods. So a digital method is using an overlay program and then recording a window capture in OBS that only records the drawing program. So it doesn't record the window on top of it. So here is a demonstration. Here they're drawing, so it looks like they're drawing a legit speed paint. You can see the layers, right? So it doesn't look like they're tracing anything. But this is the fake process. So here they have a really, really faint, right, screen above it. And then that screen above it is that like blue fox character, and they're tracing on top of that. So it looks like they're drawing legit, but it's not. The doc adds, how can you tell if this is happening? Partially because the sketch will be static. If there's any changes in the sketch position, they will need to readjust the overlay to match the new position or readjust the drawing back in the same spot. It will be obvious because there'll be gaps or pauses when they're sketching and in the recording. But if the video is sped up, the gaps might not be obvious, or they could completely edit that out. The way the canvas position appears static when they sketch, but readjusted back at the same position if the canvas zoom position level changes, will look unnatural, especially when they're done with the sketch and the same kind of canvas micro repositioning. As in, they always reposition the canvas canvas back to a specific spot, and it's entirely missing during the rest of the video. Furthermore, if the cursor is visible in the recording, you will notice the moment they move it down to their taskbar to click on the overlay program in order to adjust the image they're tracing, and there'll be a brief pause before they continue sketching. So here we have two where they're kind of doing that. The doc adds, an argument people often use is that some artists don't really zoom in while sketching, and this is true. I'll emphasize that what stands out here is if the canvas is moved, they will move it back to the same spot when they began sketching, often using the navigator or scroll bars. And the doc adds, after a certain level, very few people use the scroll bar to move the canvas, as it can be inconvenient. If they flip the canvas, they will not continue sketching on it for long and place lines on top of already existing strokes. That's also a big one too, because they will flip the canvas because they feel like they should, but they don't actually do anything while flipping the canvas, you know? And again, every artist can draw their own way, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times when people flip the canvas, they're trying to check to see if it looks legit, right? And they're like, oh, okay, well, the eye looks off. Let me move the eye again. Every time they flip the canvas, they do nothing. They flip it and they put it back. They flip it, they put it. And that's completely valid. Some people will flip the canvas to look at it. Oh, looks good. Flip it back. Draw a little bit more. Flip it. Still looks good. Put it back, you know? That's fine. The point that I'm trying to make is that these people, when they get to this point, they already had like 10,000 accusations under their belt because they hit every single other red flag. And then on top of that, flipping, doing nothing, putting it back. Flipping, doing nothing, putting it back. It just makes it look a little bit odd. And the doc adds, a combination of OBS overlay for a digital recording and some adjustments will make for a really believable physical recording. So this one is helicopter food and the analysis of helicopter food. This one, we've already basically concluded. I have a whole video about helicopter food as well. I'll link it down below. But basically, people's consensus was that this was completely faked and that people thought it was a recording of a computer and they overlaid the speed paint on top of it. For them, some observations. One, the sketch with the liner is never zoomed in or rotated ever. And if it's done, there's no substantial strokes drawn. Two, a convenient excuse after the liner is done and before the coloring starts is their phone died. So there were two recordings that were stitched together. Three, the date and time part of the task bar is conveniently cropped out. Four, the recording doesn't show their tablet or hand holding their pen, so you can't even tell if they're drawing. Five, the Paint Tool side title program bar is missing the asterisk that indicates your file has been edited and not saved yet. The moment you place a stroke on the canvas, an asterisk will pop up next to the file name until you save it. It's impossible to draw without the asterisk showing up. This points out as the recording being forged. Six, you can see the OBS icon on the taskbar. It's in the recording mode because it has the red dot. So the doc continues. Here's how it was forged. The doc's theory, right? First, they used the window capture to fake a speed paint using the overlay layer. So, you know, they had an overlay open, but it wasn't recording the overlay and they traced on top of that. While they were recording their screen capture with OBS, they replayed the previous window capture inside OBS while using a display capture source. They can only assume the side program bar is a fake PNG image on top. So that's why in the final IRL video, you can see the OBS recording icon too. Their taskbar was visible as they recorded since they used a display capture to replay the window capture. And then now that the recording of their window is ready, they replayed the second video in full screen and recorded that with their phone. One thing that I also want to add TLDR is that all of these people, when they are accused of tracing and they need to, you know, cook up a legit looking video, they always have the shittiest looking speed paint video that you've ever seen. And they're always things cropped out. They never show everything. There's always something cropped out. Some layers are missing, time is missing, or it is like 240p. Now, I understand not everybody is a content creator with a tripod they can set up to go record, you know, their screen, because most people just use the computer recording. But like, what are the odds every single one of them that later ended up actually getting fully proven that they were tracing AI has the shittiest recording known to man when it comes to clearing their name? You really have to think about it from like a human perspective, right? If you are a legitimate artist that was falsely accused of using AI, wouldn't you want to like knock this out of the park? Like, fuck you guys, I'm not using AI. I am drawing legitimately. I will show you. Here's a recording, full screen, see all the layers, see the time, see my hands, see my drawing tablet, and I'm gonna draw live. Here's a 4-hour recording. Now go screw yourself. Wouldn't you want to do that? So like from that perspective, it doesn't make sense either. Next up, we have the chroma key. This is the Asami Art Special. Basically, you need to be able to video edit. The way it works is you put a green layer or something, okay? A green layer. I showed this in my Asami Arts video, by the way. But you put like a green layer, okay? And then you draw over the green layer, and then you use your editing software to remove the color green out of your image. So you can see here in this color wheel, there is no green. That's because the green was edited out. In your editing software, you can edit any color out. So it doesn't have to be green. They can edit out blue or pink or whatever, okay? But just note, that will not be a color you will see in their final image, right? Because this person chose the chroma key green out, in the final drawing, there is not a single shred of green. Obviously, because they edited the color out. But yeah, you can do it with pink or whatever. This was Asami's, the most obvious one ever. because when Asami opened up the color wheel in Procreate, the green is completely grayed out. And then when they started coloring their image, the green is back. Wow. So yeah, the doc goes into the very like dumbed down method of what color chroma keying is, which I like how the doc does that so that there's no way people can like misunderstand. You select one color out. You can do that in your editing software. The doc also adds, at the 1:15 minute, she uses the quick menu to make a new layer instead of opening the layer tab, obviously. Because if she shows a layer tab, you would be able to see there is an AI layer she's tracing. I feel like most people use the layer tab. Very few people I feel like use the quick menu. And then at 2 minutes in, you can see she quickly opens the layer tab. The video implies this is a brand new canvas, yet layer 1 is missing. Again, if you add an image in, it adds as layer 1 when you open the first layer, and then layer 2, 3, 4, 5. So where did layer 1 go? This is another thing that always is a bit suspicious when it comes to people's speed paints and did they trace AI or not. A lot of people with speed paints where they're trying to disprove AI, they don't have a layer 1. Again, there are many legit cases where you don't have a layer 1. You open up layer 1 and you make a shitty sketch and you think it looks ugly. You delete it, you make a new one, and you're like, we're trying again, you know? There's many legit reasons why you wouldn't have a layer 1. But a lot of times with these tracers, layer 1 is missing because that was the AI image they're tracing over and they deleted that. Again, don't just go out accusing people if they don't have a layer 1, their time lapse, but these people are people that already hit 10 of these red flags. And then they also don't have the layer 1 when they're opening it. And they also don't have the color green in their Procreate because they chroma keyed it out. Come on. Next up is AR tracing. This is what Chocopie did, allegedly. So it's through your phone, you know? You record in your phone where you have a transparent image that you can see through your phone, and then they record the drawing. But in the recording process, you don't see that hidden layer because it's not shown in the recording. The doc adds, this is why I believe live drawing sessions are pretty much the only irrefutable proof of somebody's active skill. Tracers could still use any of the previous methods I've listed, but you will notice it. And honestly, I agree. Unfortunately, nowadays, the way it's been, the most dead obvious this person isn't tracing is if they've done live drawing. Like they've streamed their drawing in any way, they've done magma sessions with other artists that can verify, or they are an artist that's been around for 10 years so that there's 10 years of speed paints people have seen. So people know this person's legit. Another point, styles resembling an existing artist's style. Artists often take inspo from others to develop their style, and it's natural. And in some cases, some artists can fully copy or emulate a style that inspires them, which can be controversial. So an account posting images that resembles another style doesn't immediately mean they're tracing AI images. But we're going to talk about LoRAs. LoRAs are low-rank adaptations, and it's a smaller model trained with specific data to fine-tune details in large models. Basically, people will take an artist style, they like feed them into like AI, make a LoRA out of it, and the LoRA is only in this one artist style. So here we have some examples. So this is an artist, trace images from LoRA generations. This is an artist, trace from a LoRA generation. And the doc adds, if you follow or support tons of artists online, it can be easy to spot the original style somebody is tracing from. And the doc adds, regarding AI for referencing, finally, I'll address AI referencing. I believe referencing AI is still unethical and plagiarism. These AI models were trained with Dambaru data ranging from 2 million to 20 million artworks, and there's tons of environmental concerns. But as always, things aren't simple, and it's easy to point fingers at others without looking at the full picture. The internet is pure slop right now, which means an artist might be referencing AI images without knowing it's AI. The doc adds, oh, it's so obvious it's AI, but some might simply not be aware of how advanced AI has come in 2 years. Some artists might be uneducated about the topic and be not aware of how generative AI is trained with other artists' drawings. It might sound far-fetched they wouldn't be aware, but I believe educating people should be done in an amicable way instead of patronizing others. I agree too. Again, it can't be one where it's like, how did you not know? Dude, sometimes people just don't know. Something that seems really obvious to you may not seem really obvious to other people. And I agree. A lot of times it just comes to like full education. If somebody doesn't know and you're kind of like, hey, I just want to bring it up to you. I see that you're referencing a lot of AI. Like AI isn't great. It's trained off a lot of artists. And they're like, oh, I didn't know, If you come at it from a really combative way where you're like, you should have known, fuck you, like da 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 da, we're not gonna arrive at a good conclusion because I feel like at the end of the day, the hope is that people don't use generative AI and, cause a lot of environmental damage and use a lot of water to generate anime girls. But that we're never going to get there if like the method to get there is to harass, belittle, and combat everybody, right? So again, it can seem very obvious. Like, how did you not know? There's so much conversation about this. You should know. But, I think a good conversation can go a long way. So the doc continues. The thing is that When everyone starts tracing or referencing from the same AI outputs, instead of learning the fundamentals of art, you end up with barely unique drawings, which is why a lot of the tracer accounts usually have drawings with the exact same poses and the exact same faces. It might not seem like it on the surface, but most AI anime girl images are just slight variations of the same dozens of poses with similar proportions over and over again. Here we can see 3 examples. Generalizations can be harmful when dealing with this topic, so I will avoid saying there's things like AI poses, but there's definitely some compositions that AI favors. You can often observe these similarities across Gen AI or tracer accounts, but sometimes a coincidence simply is a coincidence. Here we can see more examples. Personally, from what I see, they really like the lower up angle 3/4 body pose with the chest tilted upwards, so you can see the underside of the boob. That's just what I have seen a lot of. But again, because AI steals from real people, there are a lot of real artists who just like poses like that. No shade to that, but this is again in context with everything else. The doc adds, beginners who trace or heavily reference are not learning anatomy. By tracing, they carry over the anatomical issues AI has. And because they're beginners, they would not be able to spot them in the first place. New artists might not bother learning lighting or color theory, they won't have a defined color palette associated with their art. It's easier to just heavily reference and color pick from AI. Here we have some examples, right? A heavily referenced piece, the generated image, and then the time lapse. And it says the artist behind the example below was upfront about the reference being AI, as it was their reinterpretation, and it wasn't malicious. Brand new unique art styles will stop emerging, and a new generation of artists will only be able to produce lifeless works if they can only rely on AI to draw instead of building their own distinctive styles. As somebody who follows hundreds of artists and has been consuming digital art for 15 years now, I've already started noticing how many artists are leaning towards the same look. Here we have some examples of AI generated images versus traced images. A lot of the expressions and faces are the same. And the doc adds, I've already given my ending statement at the end of part 1. I am exhausted, and I hope it was clear this wasn't meant as a way to cause discord or fighting between artists and people who enjoy art. I don't want to bring people down, and I believe everyone can do better. I will continue to support honest, hardworking artists and look forward to their growth. The only thing left for me to say is thank you for reading. And that's the big point at the end of the day, right? Not to use this as a way of bullying or harassing others, but for people who are looking to try to commission artists, how can you spot somebody who's legit? These pointers can be a way that you can tell. And here are a few examples of artists that are doing these exact things. These are covered at the end of the Chocopie doc. A lot of these artists I've already talked about on my channel because they are notorious for tracing, scamming, and they've already been caught. Here we have another artist, Idol Mia. Here they say, I'm not AI, dude. I work hard and draw for over 5 years. Stop being a hateful, unstudied person. And it adds, Idol Mia was found to be tracing AI for commissions back in 2025. These commissions were $250 plus. The AI images were posted online by other accounts. They were not generated by Idol Mia themselves, so it was easy to track original sources. Despite this, Idol Mia claims they didn't use AI. Most of these were not even fully traced, just hair and paintovers, while keeping the AI-generated body and clothes. Here we can see some side-by-sides, more side-by-sides, more side-by-sides. Somebody made a big old call out about them, and then Idol Mia put out this ginormous post on Twitter, basically playing victim, being like, you don't understand how much I hate AI, all my stuff is human-made. They have this time-lapse they've posted to prove they didn't use AI, and then people look at the time-lapse and were like, yo, this looks weird. And then they deleted it. And somebody paid $450 for an illustration, and they got ghosted. Here we have another artist, Pre-X Mal. Just note, no official outfits, always my own variants and fresh designs. We've already covered that one. And the doc adds another account that traces AI while running real artist work through image to imaging. And they were open about using AI. Here, somebody asked them what tools they use, and they said MediaBank, AI, Photoshop, and Illustrator. Here they say, yep, it's made by AI, but not from prompts alone. I did this, that, this, that, this. Which I also think is always really weird because every time when people use AI to generate imagery, right, they always get so defensive about it being a lot of effort. They're like, oh, no, I use AI, but no, it's not just a brain dead prompt. I did this. I put in so much work to make it look good. Let's call a spade, bro. You prompted it. That's easy. You just put in a prompt, no? Like AI bros like to walk 2 lines at the same time, which is not possible. They like to claim that AI is easy, fast, and simple, and yet, wow, this is actually a masterful creative work that I spent a lot of time doing. It's not both, so pick your poison. So when confronted, they just started attacking people. Here's another page. Read Post-it 101. And it adds, there is a group of people that were generating AI back in 2023 who later moved on to trace AI instead. They quietly removed mentions of Stable Diffusion and AI in their bio. These people often lie about their workflows or make it sound like they're not explicitly tracing. But with this account, they haven't deleted a lot of the posts yet. So here this person says, I don't use apps and all that shit that copies styles. I use Stable Diffusion and I created my own style based on what I was already able to do. And then they also add, if I only have 2 hours, I'll use AI to speed up the process. So those are just a few examples. And again, the reason why it's harmful is for a number of reasons. One, most of these artists are using LoRa's or other things that steal the art style from other actual legitimate artists. So one, it's already stealing profits from the artist, but two, just straight up violating the artist's work, their integrity, and the amount of time and effort they spent developing their art style, completely ripped away with LoRa. And most of these artists who had their art trained on, they didn't consent to it, and they're likely not even supportive of generative AI at all. And then secondly, these people are scamming because they're pretending they are a legitimate artist hand drawing their pieces with fake speed paints and things like that when they didn't. And third, a lot of these people don't even intend to deliver the finished product. They'll take hundreds of dollars for a commission and then not deliver and ghost the client. At the end of the day, people are going to do whatever they do. I don't support generative AI, but there's going to be people who will use it regardless. That is your choice. That's up to you. I'm not your mom. I can't tell you what to do. But at the same time, it's just the deception, right? Because most of these people commissioning these artists are commissioning them under the guise that they think they're commissioning a legitimate human artist who is hand drawing the work. But they're not. They're commissioning somebody who is prompting AI to get an image, and then maybe they color over it, maybe they didn't, or maybe they traced over it. But the person who commissioned them is commissioning them under the premise that they're thinking no AI is being used. So at least having more clarity, if these people were to disclose that their images were AI generated, etc., then people will go into it with the full knowledge of what is happening. And what if for those who want to support generative AI and purchase it, that's their money at the end of the day. I don't like that. But for people who think they were purchasing legitimate artwork, they're not going to go purchase from these people because they don't support that. And it's that clarity and transparency at the end of the day that is very important. Because again, if AI is so good, generative AI is so cool, why are so many of these artists coming out here and pretending they're an artist when they actually aren't? That's always the interesting question. So again, with this, right, this was just looking over the document. Don't bully or harass anybody. Don't send threats. That is not cool. It doesn't make you better than anybody else. This is again for awareness and education, as if you are somebody looking to commission an artist, take all of these to heart. Do a little bit of research. If you're ever having doubts, contact some artist friends to go take a look up the artist to see if they hit any of those red flags that were mentioned in the document. But finally, I do want to add a big old disclaimer again. A lot of those red flags are things human artists will do. A sudden jump in skill can be explained away by really locking in, taking some classes. Some people just like one face expression and it just happens to look really anime-esque. That's no shade, no tea there. Sometimes people forget fingers. It happens. So when you see like one or two, don't just go slinging accusations out there for people, okay? But the big one is, again, when an account hits way too many of these red flags, maybe consider, if you're going to try to commission, maybe see if you can do a little bit more research on them first, But don't just use like one or two pointers to start bullying and slinging accusations. That's not cool. But yeah, with that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. For some of the other AI scammers that we have talked about in this video, I'll have the previous videos I've made on them linked down below because these are some massive rabbit holes to delve into. And with that, I have an Etsy shop where I sell digital art for streamers and creators there. I also have a coffee with free resources, like a free sponsorship guide if you're a content creator. And I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. PST, where I do a podcast with my friend. So I hope to catch you all there or in another one of my videos. Peace.